Thanks, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. I won't tell you much about me to start. I'm actually going to focus on you. But before we start, the one thing I wanted to ask is I'm also really sensitive to the topic of villains and with the more global situation that everyone is kind of listening to and bombarded with on a daily basis. So I just wanted to let you know that I'm cognizant of that. Somebody that works with defense and the military quite often. I'm cognizant of wars, genocide, invasions, COVID, you name it. So if I offend anybody by anything I put in here, just pull me aside afterwards, and I'd love to just talk with you about it. It's not, villains and red teaming is not always an easy topic. It's an uncomfortable thing, and you're going to see why in a minute. But there's a couple things I have to ask of everyone here for my presentation to, one, make sense, and two, to just work for everyone. The first, so I'm going to have three contentions I'm going to put out there. And if you don't agree with it, at least on some level, then you have to leave until I'm done. Okay? You'll have to take off and then come back. Otherwise, you'll just hate the presentation. And the other thing I wanted to ask is three contentions. What was the other thing I was going to ask? Drawing a blank for a second. I can't remember what I was going to say. There was one other thing that was important. Oh yes, so I had to make, sorry about that. I'm human, so I'll make my nervous mistakes. The other thing I have to ask is, I don't know everyone in the room. So I try to make this presentation for who I thought was in the room. So I'm gonna make a couple assumptions up front, and then if I hit you, you can raise your hand, okay? If not, leave your hand down and I'll know that I've got to ask you, kind of what's your background, or where would you say you fit in, okay? And we'll start. So I love this picture. I've called it Embracing Your Inner Villain, and if we have time, I'll get into some fun media with that. Okay, so you're the focus. So here are the three people I thought might show up to this presentation, okay? The entrepreneur or the business owner. Is anybody here a business owner or an entrepreneur? You can raise your hand, okay? Oh, I got like half already. This is great. Okay, the creative innovator. So somebody who's a content creator. Okay, we got one in the back. Somebody who's in the field of innovation. Somebody that's looking for new ideas, maybe. Okay, so we got a few. And then maybe management consultants, people who advise other people on things. Okay, well, okay, a couple more hands. Okay, we almost got the whole room. So if you didn't put your hand up, what would you, can you put your hand up and say what you would call yourselves? And I'll look at you over there.
Project management.
Project manager. Okay, perfect. Okay, you'll be covered. You'll be covered too. I'm going to loop you in under. Yes, management consultant. Perfect. Anybody else? Say I don't resonate with any of these. Okay. Okay. So I think we got. Oh, does anybody else?
Advisor, maybe.
Advisor. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I'll put you under management consultant. Sure. Okay. So I thought there'd be three things that you want out of this presentation. If you're a business owner, you need sales. So number one thing that's on your mind: how do I make more money? How do I save money? How do I make more money? If you're an innovator, you're probably looking for ideas. Okay? So I'm going to touch on ideas for you. And if you're an advisor or a consultant of some type, you're probably looking for frameworks, tools, methodologies, something that you can practically take with you to your job, to your project, and use right away. So that's what I built this for. So you're going to be the focus. Okay? Here we go. So my first contention is, you're here, you took a Thursday night to come out here, it's because you have something to give, or you're looking to learn something. You're somebody who's taking the initiative, and so I call that somebody that has fire in your belly. If you don't have fire in your belly as an entrepreneur, as a consultant, as an innovator, you probably wouldn't be here. You wouldn't take the effort to come out, okay? And it's really important to know I'm looking at this group, and there's probably one person who I'm going to talk to tonight who absolutely needs this. And so I'll talk to you. And there's probably one or two other people who'd be really interested in learning about it and knowing more about it and maybe doing it. That's it. Everybody else is here because I won't address you directly, but you're going to walk away with knowing and being aware. Okay? So you don't know who you are yet, but probably by the end of the presentation, you'll be like, oh crap, I'm the one, or I'm one of the two, or he was right, I don't care. That's okay. That's okay. Second contention. To understand red teaming, you have to understand that you are always bombarded by unconscious social programming. You live in Canada. So what do I mean by that? You live in Canada. You wake up in the morning, you're supposed to drink coffee before you drink water. Okay? You live in Canada, you have to own a car. You don't bike, you have to own a car. Buying a house is a smart idea. It's forced retirement saving. Okay? I'll get more in depth with this. If you're Canadian, you're always looking to say, I'm sorry first, you're a little more polite. You have each other's back. You tell each other, we're in a community, we have each other's back. Right? You can go down the whole list of all the little things, but there's all this unconscious social programming that happens as a Canadian. And does anybody in the room, has anyone in the room lived in another country? Okay, perfect, okay. Is it true that when you came back to Canada or you moved to Canada, you went, holy crap, Canadians are unaware of who Canadians are? Here and out there, right? So you have to, otherwise you got to go. Okay, so you got to believe, even if you're skeptical, it's good. Be skeptical, but believe that there's a lot of programming and social conditioning happening. And the third contention I'd like to put out there, and it's going to link to my next slide, is that we have a problem in business. This is a slide that tells you with businesses with more than one or more employees that survive over time for the next 17 years. And it's down, right? I'd say, I can't read it very well, but I think around year 7 or year 8, half of businesses go out of business, right? By year 17, between 28, 35, I think, okay? This is not the only stat in the world, by the way. This is one I pull off the internet. So you'll probably find another graph and say, Sean, you're full of shit, because look, there's another one that goes up, okay? But in general, the other percentage, this one's collaborated by a bunch of different sources, is about 70% of projects fail. We have a problem, okay? What's the problem? Everyone will give you 100 different reasons because they're selling you what their answer is to the problem. Tonight I'm going to give you a different answer you probably haven't heard before. So that's what's fun. If you're in for the no part, the next couple slides are like, woo, we got something out of tonight, and then the food. Okay, the problem. Here's my contention about the problem. Businesses invest and bet everything on one team in their business. And I'm going to specifically talk about we call it the blue team, but I'm talking about people who plan things. They plan business, they plan projects. They're your planners, okay? We walk around, so here's my analogy. Who likes sports? Who watches the Toronto Raptors? Or the Chicago Bulls, 90s? Chicago Bulls, anybody? Yes, you're my man. Sean, you are my man. You not only share my name, but you're okay, great. You're gonna love a slide in a minute. Here's what it's like, guys. Businesses play basketball like this. What is this? It's like being a pro sports team that practices and plays all season, and they don't play against any competition. Have you seen this where you work? That's a great idea. I don't care about it. That's a great idea. I don't want to hear it. Nobody wants to sit in this meeting more than the time that we set, so please stop holding us up by questioning. Does that happen? Happens. I work with government. It happens a lot in government, more so than anywhere else. But I would put out there that probably happens in private sector as well. Why do we do this? Why would you and you expect them to win the championship? You were expecting them to make it to the finals and win a championship, and they never play against any competition. They're just, our idea is good, the plan will work. We talk to each other about it, but ultimately we're just trying to get it out the door and get it to work, right? Sean, this slide's for you. It's my background, my home program. Michael Jordan, so this is the iconic, I call this my iconic sports red teaming reference. Anybody that knows something about that day in the 90s will know a couple interesting facts. Yes, he's wearing red. Okay, so the most obvious one is he's wearing red. The less obvious one is he's the villain. Why is Michael Jordan, I thought everyone wants to be like Mike. Isn't that the motto? Be like Mike? Why is he the villain? Exactly. You can't, he's playing in Utah. All of those fans watching hate his guts. They hate his guts. This is called the last shot because he makes the shot, and with that shot wins a championship in Utah. And it's not his first, second, third, fourth, fifth. It's his sixth championship. What does Michael Jordan do that no other NBA basketball player ever did? I'll give you 2 hints. 1, his own teammates hated him. Why? Because in every practice, he'd take off, he'd put on the red jersey, and he'd play against the rest of the leading team, and he would push them to their limit, to the break where they would get in fistfights. That's reason 1. Reason 2 is because in his own head, if you said something bad about Michael Jordan, he needed an enemy. So if he caught wind that you said something bad about him, he'd come the next game and score 60 points on you because he made it up in his head to be worse than it really was, worse than what you said, because he knew himself and he knew he needed a villain. He wouldn't go into a game and just play for the sake of sport. He played to win. So, iconic red team. If you play basketball like business and you just play with a blue team and you don't come up against any competition, this is what your people are going to do when things go wrong. They're going to look like this. She's up there on the top right. She's watching Michael Jordan hit the shot. Look at these people. This is actually from the zoomed in. Or these people. This is what they think about you running around thinking, we're winning in business, and we're not challenging ourselves. We're not thinking critically. Or this guy. Or my favorite. No, not her. Or him. This guy. No, oh, don't do it. Don't hit it. I'm assuming that's Karl Malone, by the way. Okay? Have I made that point? This is the problem. Okay. Raise your hand if I've hit a chord yet and you say, I've either been in the problem or I've been the cause of this problem before. You can be honest. I have. I don't have time to do that. I don't want to be challenged on this. It costs too much. It takes too much time. We're human beings, right? As human beings, we want to do good work. We want to do it efficiently, and we want to make some money, or we want to win the prize. But we think that not accepting challenges is the way to go. And I'm telling you it's not. So here's the cause. The whole literature on red teaming starts to expose things like Daniel Kahneman's talks about biases, heuristics, and the worst of all that is when you get a bunch of people with biases and different heuristics going on, and then you put them in a room, then you get groupthink. We all think it's a good idea because no one wants to stand out. The basics of it is we all want to conform, we all want to not be ousted, we want to be liked, we want to be accepted. Okay? The cause of the problem is there's no systematic way, right? We play blue team all day long because we assume that we're doing it right. And we assume that someone else will step in and solve the problem if we have it wrong. The groupthink part. Oh, that's right, that's a good idea. We should do that. So who am I? Now I'm going to talk to you really quickly about me, really fast. Husband and dad, lots of time. I have a business bachelor's. I have a master's in war studies. Not Lord of War or Nicolas Cage, because some people say you look like Nicolas Cage a little bit. No, war studies is history, military history. So I study history and I try to look at case studies and I look at how do we apply this in business and life. I was a veteran for 5 years. I've been a management consultant a long time, and this is my company, and a proud partner with Cansulta. Okay? Why should you listen to me about talking about red teaming? My earliest experience of being a villain was as a basketball player, if you can't tell. And I realized very early on that playing in my home team, on my home court and winning games was fun. But playing in my worst enemy's home court and being booed and beating them was a lot more fun for me. So I'm that guy. I'm the villain. I just am. I love it. Also, I was asked to participate in a defense exercise, and as part of a course I was doing in my master's, and by the end of it, myself and a bunch of Army officers had to conspire to create a terrorist attack against Canada. And ours was selected, and then they used it at defense to help protect Canada. So they were like, please don't blow up those things. And we should watch you. So I'm on social media all over the place because I know that they're already watching me all over the place anyway. So I have nothing to hide. Okay, it's me. Now I'm going to introduce the red team. What's the whole idea of red teaming? Just the verb. I like red craft better because I object with the idea that you always have to do it as a team. But red teaming is what you'll find most of the literature talks about. So what is red teaming? I like to juxtapose that picture against the blue team because they look tough. I like it. The red team, what is red teaming overall? So I've broken down about 16 definitions from all over the world. And these are the 4 things I like. Red team practitioners identify shortcomings in your strategies and your plans. That's what they do. They look for the shortcomings. You notice I said plans. So this is the planning part. They're like a pair of martial artists that spar. Improvement only comes by working with an adaptive opponent. So the whole basis of martial arts training is you only get better if you train with an active opponent. But through mutual respect. It's not just anarchy or chaos. This independent and deliberate challenge functions the heart of red teaming. The heart of it is independent. And it's very deliberately trying to challenge things on a budget, in a time frame. Okay? And it's not perfect. It's not a guarantee. I've got lots of examples where it doesn't work or that didn't matter. That's okay too. And a unique perspective and set of activities. Okay? So they bring things like design methods. What is that other one called? Liberating structures. All kinds of things that you don't really hear or don't see practice in business too often. They bring those things in because they like to assemble teams that are very diverse and bring different skill sets to get outside the box and think about the problem differently. I love this. We look to stress test our plans. Put it under stress, right? That's what red teaming is about. What are the benefits? Really quickly, these are the things I think that are a benefit of red teaming. They're not always achieved, but these are the things that you will find if it works well. These are the things you can get from it. You can gain a competitive edge over your competition. You can improve your odds of success. Why? It's more deliberate, meticulous. You can gain decision foresight. Thinking ahead 10 steps. How might they do this? How might I do this? What happens if I do this? And what are the second and third order effects? Okay? Resilience and what I call survivability. Go back to the slide of business is not surviving. Businesses don't talk about this enough, but there's always an element of risk where something hits your business and you don't survive it. That's what red teaming is really good at. Not just resilience, but survivability. Innovation, we find innovation. Performance improvement, I'm not talking about operational performance improvement, like we create more widgets faster. I'm talking about training the heads of the police of the New York State Police Department to better deal with terrorist attacks. Because they train, and they use wargaming to train a terrorist attack. Their decision-making is tested, and it improves over time. So that's performance improvement of people. Lastly, you help mitigate groupthink and biases. Okay, so that's what you stand to gain by understanding red teaming. What are the 3 modes? Most of the literature will talk about, there's 3 buckets in general. Simulations, war games, tabletop exercises. Okay? It comes into play, I'll tell you when. But that's one form that you see red teaming take. It can be small, like a little game. It can be billions of dollars and involve aircraft carriers at sea. Vulnerability probes. Talk about cybersecurity today, talk about pen testing, talk about social engineering, ways to test and probe to see and record how well did our defenses stand up against something? How well did that project stand up? How well did that building stand up? Whatever it is. And then the one I love and the one that I'm biased towards, I lean towards, is alternative analysis. This is more like what the CIA does. Is I'll use this example. I wasn't thinking to use it, but is the 6-foot elderly man in a building in Pakistan who never shows his face, lives behind a 10-foot wall, never leaves the house, is he Osama bin Laden? We don't know. Let's put together a team to look at all the evidence and think of the alternatives. Maybe he's a drug dealer. Maybe he's a high-ranking Taliban terrorist, but he's not bin Laden. There's a case study on that one. The answer is, it was bin Laden. That's how they got him. Okay, what is the journey? So I love presentation, I love information, but at the end of the day, I ask, like, if you were to do red teaming, what is, the literature has got a bunch of different pieces to this. This is its most simplified version. I call it the adversary journey. And I won't spend a lot of time, but I'll just touch on it. You do a boot camp to figure out what's the right approach for you. It's custom, right? There's no one size fits all. Then you are spending your time initially, and you step back from the problem, and you get really aware of what are your own biases as a team. So pretend I'm a team of red teamers, and I'm looking at a problem or a project. I have to step back, look at the problem differently, and say, what are my own biases towards men and women and gender? What's my biases towards climate security or climate change, and is it real or not? Like things like that, right? What are my own biases? Self-awareness. Critical stage, it says critical thinking. This is all about getting the facts and the evidence. Really important, it sets you up for a stage of doing creative work. We're gonna do a quick exercise. And there's lots of different tools and techniques for how you get really creative. If you were to draw it as a graph, you get here and then you assess your problem and then you diverge in your thinking. You go really wide and you're not trying to hone in on the answer. That's what this is. You start selecting certain things that you learn from the creative stage and you come up with a challenge for it. A little challenge game, whatever that challenge is. If it's a vulnerability probe, great. If it's a war game, great. If it's an alternative analysis report, great. It's a challenge product. The last one, so now you've done a bunch of challenging and you have to converge again before you can influence your decision maker. You can do all of this right and screw up on number 5 and it won't succeed. Why? Because you're doing all this red teaming work to influence a decision maker. You have to learn how to influence decision makers. And you have to do it ethically. That's the other thing. And then 6 is you repeat this a lot of times and you start to develop mastery of it. And when you become a master of it, you can start kind of moving up in the ranks. You can be a practitioner, you can be a team leader, you can be sort of a program manager of it, you can then become like a VP of it for an institution, doesn't matter. Okay, that's the idea. This is the journey. Okay, how much time have I taken? I don't know, I haven't been, okay, tell me if I get, this is like a little over the halfway point, so. Okay, so I want to do a creative exercise. One of these creative exercises, the whole point of today's talk, the title of the talk is looking at villains. So in red teaming, we love to use analogies. And one of the things I teach you to do is actually get really good at what analogies are appropriate and which ones to pick to better understand your problem. I can't teach that in 10 minutes, but what I can do is have some fun. So I'm gonna have some fun. Who's been following my social media? Anybody? Alex, just you? That's fine. So if you haven't, guess what? You're in luck. It means you won't know what I'm about to That was more. Okay, good. If you haven't, then this will be new and it'll be fun. It's just fun. This is just fun because I hate me talking too much and it's stuffy and that's it. Okay. I'm literally going to go to my Instagram account, which is funny. And I'm going to go to my Instagram and hopefully it loads. Oh, it loaded. So good. Okay. What I'm going to do in this exercise is I'm going to show you a quote, and I'm going to play a little audio, and you'll get to see somebody as a villain. I'll point out some stuff, and then I'll take one hand for each villain. So if you want to say something about the villain, I hate that guy, or I love that person, and this is why, it'll be fun. But I'll explain to you why I like villains, and it goes back to the social programming, which is we're told to like take a villain as just necessary for a story and then never think about or study them or look at them again. And we're pre-programmed to think that all villains are bad and everything about villains is bad. What if some of the problems of the people and the organizations you work with exhibit behavior that is so different from you that you would call that villainous? And you've never thought about it. And so when you make plans and decisions about that will have repercussions for them, you don't take into account some of these things. So that's going to be the fun part. Okay, my first one is the one I like the most because I'm a movie buff. If anybody guess it, there we go.
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist. And like that, he's gone.
Okay.
He's close to getting caught.
Okay. Kaiser Sose, anybody know the movie? The Usual Suspects? No? Okay, cool. Okay, so Kevin Spacey, Kaiser Sose. Things to note about Kaiser Sose. He uses disinformation and deception, probably better than any other villain in movie history. The entire movie goes on, and he's talking about this character that's never been seen, and at the end of the movie, you are in shock. I won't ruin it, because you got to watch the movie. You're in shock to find out that Kaiser Sose has duped everyone, and it's got one of the best twists at the end of the movie. How are some of the ways he dupes everyone? Well, this will spoil it. Okay, if you want to watch the movie and you don't want a spoiler, like plug your ears because I didn't think this through. I know. Okay, he uses his understanding of people's biases to disguise himself, even though he's Kaiser Sose, as a cripple, somebody with a disability. I use cripple because that's what they use in the movie. Somebody with a disability who he knows they will think he was not capable of such deeds. He also, if the story about him is correct, he's also what would I call it, determined that when his family is taken and they're threatened, he would rather kill his own family first so that they would die by his hand, so that the people who are taking them hostage have no power over him. It's Kaiser Sose. Bad, bad man. Okay, next one. Anybody know this one? Okay, it's my fun one.
Very well. I'll bide my time. And as for you, my fine lady, true, I can't send you here now, my wife, but just try to stay out of my way. Just try. I'll get you, my pretty, and your little dog too.
Okay, I love that one. Wicked Witch of the West. One, she's vengeful. Her sister got hit by a house. She's very vengeful. Two, she wants comprehensive revenge. What's comprehensive revenge? I'll get you, my pretty, and I'm going to get your little dog. I'm going to get your little dog too. Right? Comprehensive revenge. Next one. I'll just go. Whoop.
Can be allowed just to speak English.
Hold on. That was not it. There we go.
The point is, ladies and gentlemen, that greed, for lack of a better word, is good. Greed is right. Greed
Oh.
works.
Internet. Greed works. Okay. I will try to. I should put myself on the Wi-Fi. His talk about greed. He backstabs and betrays anybody, even in his personal life, to get what he wants. He's relentless in his pursuit of wealth. He represents all that's bad about like Wall Street, but you kind of like him too. You're like, oh, I kind of like the power he's derived in this as this character. So he does all the mean and evil things, and yet tells Americans and the people that he's addressing in this thing that greed is good. It sets us apart. It makes us stronger. Right? So trying to convince people over to their side. Here's another one. Anybody know this one? Let's see if it'll play it.
Out of your room.
Oh, come on, Siri.
No, I haven't.
You know what? I'm just going to try to connect it while it plays.
No, I haven't.
Yep.
No, I haven't.
Paul, my little ceramic penguin in the study always faces due south.
I don't know what you're talking about. Penguin.
Is this what you're looking for?
She holds up the knife that he was trying to hide under his bed.
Twice, Paul. First, I couldn't figure out how you did it. But last night, I found your key. I know I...
Okay, I'll stop there. Annie Wilkes is a Stephen King character from the movie Misery. And what makes her really awful is she's obsessive, she's possessive. She tells this guy, he's a writer, he's stuck in her house because he was in an accident. I'm your number one fan, I've read all your things. Doesn't let him leave, keeps him hostage, and then goes on to use her nursing skills to keep him there and debilitate him and try to control his whole life from then on. Basically keep him in the house for the rest of his life. She doesn't succeed, but one of the things I wanted to point out was, do your opponents pay this kind of attention to detail? I know you've been out of your room, Paul. My little ceramic penguin in the study always faces due south. Do we have that kind of attention to detail in our business? What if your opponent does? Uh-oh. Things to learn. Thanos, I won't do the music because it's being splotchy. In all my years of conquest, violence, and slaughter, it was never personal. Big, strong, strategic thinker, huge vision. But you know what one of the things I talk about Thanos and Avengers is that he wants the greater good, but he just has a really twisted belief on how to get there, and it's different from everyone else's. Right? He wants the entire world to be freed from its, freed from its sort of its shackles of the way people suffer, and they don't have enough food, things are overpopulated, and so on. He says, so I'll just destroy half of living existence, and that'll free up resources. What if your opponents want the same thing you want, but they have a drastically different way of thinking about it? Right? Life's full of tough choices, isn't it? She uses contracts and deals and law to create a binding spell against Ariel in The Mermaid, Little Mermaid. She's charismatic. She's articulate. Netflix this year just released that. Michael Fassbender, Killer. I serve no God or country. I fly no flag. If I'm effective, it's because of one simple fact. Right? Hired mercenaries. What if part of your opponents are people who have no loyalty, people who are doing it for the money, people who are doing it for the sake of doing it? Right? And my last one's a favorite one. What do you want? He says, to know my enemy. This is a samurai. This is a Westerner played by Tom Cruise. He says, I've seen what you do to your enemies. And he says, the samurai asks, the warriors in your country they don't kill? Yes. He says, they don't cut the heads off defeated kneeling men. His answer was, as samurai, we have different cultures, different norms. In my culture, it's honorable to take the head of a fallen samurai. That's how I restore honor to his family. He says, for example, in my culture, it's very rude to not introduce yourself, not even to an enemy. Posing it back on Tom Cruise. And the other thing I like about it is they become friends. So what happens if you're treating your opponent, your enemy, like an enemy that won't ever become a friend? What could be a colleague at work, another director, another manager? Suddenly you're put into the same project, suddenly you're friends. How would it change the choices you make now? Right? Oh, we could have been partners with that company, but we burned bridges. We made foolish mistakes. We We're going to look at the long game. Okay? It's a creative ways to get out of the daily way of thinking and use other analogies to rethink or pose questions to a group of us in our planning and think about what would we do differently? How would we shift our plans slightly or a lot to account for some of these things, if we can? That's the work of red teaming. The red teaming bootcamp, I'm almost done. I took you from 3, I'm going to take you to 0 because this is super practical for what comes next. You want to use red teaming, well, there's some kind of a correct combination of things. I think of it like turning a bunch of parts in a dial. And if you get them all right, red teaming might be for you. It might be the thing you need. Here they are, and if you go bing, 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 oh, go for it. If they'll all line up red, then you got a good case for red teaming. What are the 5 dials? I call them I've only discovered 5, and I might have them wrong. But these are the 5 I think of. One is you need a sponsor. And your sponsor better be someone in senior leadership who buys in. Because if you don't have a leader with buy-in for what you want to do, you will waste your time and your effort and tears and sweat and blood, and it'll go nowhere. Simple fact. You need someone that will champion what you're doing. If you're going to be in a red team, stand up a red team, try to do some red teaming, whatever it is, you need buy-in, okay? 2, a team. What is the team? You have to choose an appropriate model. And if I had the slide, it would be 0 to 1 employees, like D&D, because it has 75,000 people, okay? There's 3 parts to the model, to the types of teams. If you're a small entrepreneurial business, what I suggest is the right approach or model for you is like, I've heard it said, it's like you have a board of advisors. They're not your real board, but they're people that you would go to for advice. Who's on your board? This is an affordable way to do it. If you have a board of people who advise you, get one of them, and you train and they train and buddy up and do it for each other. It's the easiest way to do it. Nobody talks about it in the literature. I think it's the easiest way to do it. Small group, that's the right model for you. You don't need to set up a team. You learn it, you make a covenant with somebody else, and you do it for each other. Right? And pick somebody who you don't have family turkey dinner with. So you'll burn that bridge. You should. You should be willing, okay? You should pick someone who you're willing to lose your relationship with. Otherwise, you're not going to be honest. You're not going to give them the advice. Okay? And that's the covenant. That's why I use the word covenant. If it's a middle group, here's what you do. You train a small team. You're like a medium-sized business, so you're 2,000 people to whatever, 10,000. You train a small. You pick a leader. You train a small team of people in-house, or you get an external consultant as a leader, and you train a team. He or she trains that team to do the work with you. Make it diverse. Have it be a part-time thing, and like the Avengers, you go, we have a right problem. Red team assemble, and they all come together, and they do red teaming for a short period of time, for a very specific project, and then they go back to whatever they were doing before. Okay, assemble. The last one, big organizations, you're looking to build a capability. So you'll have multiple teams, if you will, and they'll be doing different things. Some might be doing like pen testing and social engineering for that reason. Some over here might be doing alternative analysis, right? So it's much more coordinated at a high level. What's the target? You need a complex problem. Has anyone heard of this Kniffen model? Kniffen framework? If you haven't, it's a matrix of 4 squares, and it says simple, chaotic, complicated, complex, okay? My suggestion, choose complex as the types of problems that you use red teaming to tackle. Why? If it's simple, it's like going to a fist fight with a gun. It's overkill, okay? You don't need all this time and effort and planning for something that's simple. Like make an agenda for the party. Don't do it. It's waste your time. If it's chaotic, so bullets are flying, don't sit down with your buddies and go, hey, let's plan. Let's plan this out. There's too much on the line. There's too much happening at once. If it's chaotic and you need to make decisions, now's not the time. If it's complicated, this is my exception, maybe. If it's complicated, maybe. If it's complex, meaning we need to know, like, we don't know enough about this. We don't even know how this is going to happen. We don't even know how this could go. There's too many moving parts. There's second, third order effects. That's a good target. That's a good use of your money and your time to do red teaming. Timing. Don't do red teaming once someone's made a decision. Don't do it. It will bring into question everything that they've done to get to that point. Once a decision is made, follow through on the orders. Execute it. Okay? Don't stop and get paralyzed by paralysis. Don't do that. If you're going to find a time, you want to do it early, and you want to do it, there's like a window, right? 2 weeks, kind of short, depends on what it is. 6 months, maybe too long, depends on what it is. But you want it in that period where you're planning, you have your blue team's planning, you want to stand up your red team, and you want to run together, side by side. Independently, but side by side. So that when it's time to make a decision, you've got both teams bringing and they've talked to each other along the way. So you don't get to the decision and one team's like, we got it, and the red team goes, that's awful. You don't want that either. Last one, talent. You need a team lead. You got to find leaders. Because when they're diverging and converging, you need somebody to rein that in. That's the only reason. You can have genius people, but if you don't have leadership, it'll go over budget over time. Diversity, don't just pick all the people that are the same, right? Think about all of the different quadrants you could choose diversity on, do that. Seek out your mavericks. This is what companies don't do. They shun the people who are their mavericks. They're like, we really have a place here. We're kind of just hoping that you disappear and we lose you through attrition because you're so difficult, right? You're so difficult to work with. You always question stuff in the meetings. You're always skeptical. You're like, got a reason we shouldn't do it. And if this was a buffet, I would take the mavericks and I'm going to eat them like a Five Guys burger. Okay? This is delicious. I want these people on this team because they are going to rise to they've been waiting their whole lives to do something like this. And the minute you're like, that's now your job, they're going to be like Cruella de Vil. Dalmatians, I'm excited. That's what this is. How to find me, okay? If you're interested in doing a red teaming project, scan that one. If you're interested in learning how to do red teaming, scan that one. Is anybody a veteran in the group? I always have to ask that question. No veterans? Okay, if you're a veteran, I'm piloting with you for free soon. Okay. Our gift. If you scan that, because you're here tonight, you'll be informed, you have access to a 1-hour workshop. Full 1-hour workshop. We're going to dive into the boot camp stuff, and we're just going to hone in on red teaming for like a full hour, hour and a half maybe. Okay? That's that one. That's it. That's it. That's all I got. I went over time, I'm sure.
Thank you so much, Mike.
Okay, thank you.